In London, there was once a hospital so infamous that its nickname became a word for chaos: Bedlam. Today people use that word casually. A messy room is Bedlam, a loud crowd is Bedlam. A workplace meeting with too many opinions and not enough coffee is Bedlam. But before it meant noise, confusion and disorder, Bedlam was a real place, a hospital, a prison, a spectacle, and for centuries, one of the most disturbing institutions in Britain. People went there to stare. They paid to walk through its wards. They came to see patients as entertainment, as warning, as curiosity, as something less than fully human. And that is the part that should make your stomach turn. Because Bedlam was not only a story about how society treated mental illness, it was a story about how quickly suffering becomes a show when the audience is allowed to buy a ticket. This is the story of Bethlem Royal Hospital, the hospital London called Bedlam. And I promise you, the darkest part is not that people were locked inside. The darkest part is that other people came to watch. The hospital began far from the horror story it would become. Bethlem was founded in 1247 as the Priory of St. Mary of Bethlehem near Bishopsgate, just outside the walls of medieval London. At first, it was not specifically a psychiatric hospital. Medieval hospitals were often places of charity, shelter, religion, and care for people with nowhere else to go. They were not hospitals in the modern sense, with nurses checking charts and doctors pretending their handwriting is a security feature. But over time, Bethlem changed. By the early 1400s, records show it was housing people described as insane or mentally distressed. That made it one of the oldest institutions of its kind in Europe. And eventually it became something London could not stop talking about. The name Bethlem came from Bethlehem. Bedlam came from Bethlem. And Bedlam became a symbol, not just of madness, but of everything society feared about madness: unpredictability, noise, loss of control, people whose minds did not behave the way the world demanded. In a more compassionate age, that fear might have become care. In Bedlam, too often, it became confinement. For much of history, mental illness was poorly understood. People explained it through religion, morality, bodily humors, sin, possession, melancholy, madness, weakness, or danger. The language changed, but the fear stayed in the room. A person in crisis might not be seen as sick. They might be seen as shameful, or threatening, or cursed, or entertaining. That last word is the one that matters: entertaining. Because Bedlam became famous not only for its patients, but for its visitors. By the 1600s and 1700s, Londoners could visit Bethlem to look at the people inside. Some came out of curiosity, some came for moral instruction, some came because they believed looking at madness would teach them what happened when reason collapsed. Some who came because humans have always had a terrible little theater in the back of the skull that whispers, "Look." Visitors walked the wards. They stared at patients. They laughed. They mocked. They pointed. Some reportedly taunted the people inside. And the hospital, whether officially or through donations and custom, benefited from the attention. Imagine that. Your mind is breaking. You are confined in a building that smells of stone, sweat, sickness, and damp air. You have no privacy, no control, no exit. And strangers walk past you like you are part of a zoo. That is not treatment. That is humiliation with architecture. The most disturbing thing about Bedlam's public visitors is how normal it became. This was not a secret whispered about in criminal alleys. It was part of London's culture. People visited Bedlam the way they visited monuments, gardens, executions, theaters, and fairs. The hospital became a stop on the map of morbid curiosity, a place where suffering could be consumed. And once suffering becomes a public attraction, the person suffering starts to disappear. They become a lesson, a warning, a character, a spectacle, anything except a human being. In 1676, Bethlem moved to a new building at Moorfields. The building was grand, enormous, and impressive. It looked almost like a palace. Columns, symmetry, formal design, a public face meant to project charity, order, and civic pride. But behind the grand front, the reality was darker. The building was badly designed. It was damp. It deteriorated. Its walls could leak. Its foundations were unstable. The outside promised civilization. The inside held misery. That contrast is almost too perfect. A beautiful front for a rotting system, which historically speaking is one of humanity's favorite decorating choices. Inside Bedlam, patients were often kept in harsh conditions. Some were restrained, some were chained, some were isolated, some were subjected to treatments that now sound closer to punishment than medicine. Bleeding, purging, cold baths, rotational therapy, blistering. Methods based on theories of the body that were accepted in their time but often cruel, ineffective, and dangerous. Doctors believed they were treating illness. Sometimes they were simply making suffering more organized. That is what makes institutions like Bedlam so difficult to talk about. Not every person involved believed they were evil. Some thought they were helping. Some thought they were following medical knowledge. Some thought discipline was care. Some thought fear could restore order. And that may be worse than a room full of obvious villains. Because obvious villains are easy to condemn. Systems that hurt people while calling it help are harder to recognize. Bedlam's patients came from many walks of life, but many were poor, vulnerable, abandoned, or difficult for families and parishes to manage. Some were admitted during crises. Some were sent because no one knew what else to do. Some were inconvenient to the world outside. That word, inconvenient, has buried a lot of people. A person experiencing mental illness could become a problem to be removed, a burden to be locked away, a scandal to be hidden. And once hidden, they could be forgotten. Except Bedlam did not simply hide them, it displayed them. That is the cruelty at the center of the story. The patients were separated from ordinary life, then made available to the curiosity of ordinary people. Locked away but not protected, visible but not seen. There is a difference. To be visible is to be looked at. To be seen is to be recognized as human. Bedlam gave patients the first. Too often, it denied them the second. By the late 1700s, public access was restricted partly because the abuses had become impossible to ignore. Visitors could be cruel. Crowds could be disruptive. The idea of casual spectators wandering through wards full of vulnerable people had become harder to defend. But ending public gawking did not magically fix Bedlam. In fact, removing visitors also removed one layer of public scrutiny. What happened behind closed doors could become even harder to see. That is another uncomfortable truth. Public spectacle was abusive. Private neglect could be just as dangerous. There was no easy version of this system. The problem was deeper than who was allowed through the door. It was how the people inside were understood. Were they patients, prisoners, warnings, failures, objects of pity, objects of fear, objects of entertainment? For centuries, the answer was unstable, and unstable answers create unstable care. In the early 1800s, investigations and reform movements began exposing conditions in asylums. Bethlem was criticized. Reformers questioned the treatment of patients, the use of restraints, and the broader culture of confinement. One of the most famous images associated with Bedlam's history is not a photograph, but the idea of a person chained in darkness while polite society discusses charity upstairs. That image endures because it captures the hypocrisy. A society can call itself civilized and still build rooms where inconvenient people disappear. A city can fund a hospital and still let it become a warning. A crowd can call itself curious and still become cruel. Bedlam eventually changed. Bethlem Royal Hospital did not remain the Bedlam of nightmares forever. It moved locations, medicine changed, psychiatry changed, public attitudes changed. The institution that survives today is not the spectacle of the 1700s. That matters, because the point is not to pretend nothing ever improves. The point is to remember what improvement had to climb out of. The word Bedlam survived because the reputation was too powerful to die. It entered the language. It became shorthand for chaos. But that can make us forget the people behind the word. Patients with names, families, histories, fears, moments of lucidity, moments of terror. People who were laughed at when they needed care. People who were watched when they needed privacy. People whose distress became someone else's afternoon entertainment. That is what this story is really about. Not an old building, not a creepy nickname, not a haunted asylum aesthetic for posters and Halloween tours. People at their most vulnerable, trapped inside a system that often confused control with treatment. And outside the doors, a city that wanted to look. That is the part that feels least ancient, because we still live in a world where suffering becomes content. We still slow down to look at wreckage. We still turn breakdowns into gossip. We still watch strangers unravel on screens and call it drama. We still confuse visibility with understanding. Bedlam is not disturbing because it belongs to the past. It is disturbing because parts of it feel familiar. The technology changed. The appetite did not. In the 1700s, someone might walk into Bedlam to stare at a patient. Today, someone might replay a viral video of a stranger in crisis and laugh in the comments. Different theater, same impulse. That is why Bedlam matters. Not because it lets us look backward and say, people were terrible then. That is too easy. It matters because it asks what we do when someone loses control in public. Do we help? Do we turn away? Do we record? Do we mock? Do we make a spectacle out of pain because it makes us feel safe on the other side of the glass? Bedlam was a place, but it was also a mirror. A very old, very dirty mirror. And what it reflected was not only madness, it reflected the people who came to watch it. If you made it to the end of this one, genuinely respect. This story is not easy, especially because it deals with people who are vulnerable, misunderstood, and often treated with far less dignity than they deserved. This channel is about the corners of history where the horror was not supernatural, it was institutional. And the truth here is simple. Bedlam was not only terrifying because of what happened inside, it was terrifying because London bought tickets. Next time, we're going from Britain's most infamous asylum to a siege where millions were trapped, starved, and forced to survive one of the darkest winters in human history. If you want the real story, subscribe. And if this episode changed how you think about Bedlam, mental health history, or the way society turns suffering into spectacle, drop a comment and tell me what part hit hardest. I read every single one. I'll see you in the dark.